What if I told you that Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099 in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is not Spider-Man 2099 or Miguel? Let's talk about who he is and his real identity. Okay, so bear with me here for a second while I set up what I'm talking about. So in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we saw that Miguel O'Hara 2099 Spider-Man does in fact have the fangs just like he does in the comic. This is very important because quite obviously by the time the film ends on a cliffhanger, he is a villain. We all agree on this. He's pretty despicable. Throughout the film, we also find out about their version of what is essentially an incursion, but here it's a canon event. And once a Spider-Man is gone, that universe gets very destabilized and more or less vanishes. And we get the hint that this has happened plenty of times before. Why? Well, let me explain to you who Miguel O'Hara actually is. He is Morlun. Now, to make things very simple, in the distant past, Morlun and his family were part of a major battle, in which they ended up winning, and they then had the power to travel between dimensions and the Spider-Verse for one specific goal: to hunt all spider totems and consume them. In case you're wondering, yes, Morlun also has vampire-like teeth, which are important here to this part of the theory and the discussion, but also he has very creative ways in luring and capturing spider people. Now, the important thing with his abilities is he can feed on the life force of pretty much anybody, but the spider totems, the spider people he captures and feeds on, extend his life and make him more or less immortal as long as he keeps feeding on them periodically. Now, I bring this up because once a Spider-Man universe becomes a canon event and or the Spider-Man possibly screw up, he can still feed on them. That universe goes to shambles and nobody is the wiser as he's covering it up. It's also convenient enough that in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, he tells us his story, how he became the Spider-Man 2099 here, and it was this heroic event and everything that happened and transpired, but nobody can back these claims up. We just gotta take him at his word. On top of this, he seems very villainous, and to round off even more evidence, look at his base of operations, keeping tabs on every single Spider-Man out there. Isn't that exactly what Morlun did? His ability to jump through the multiverse and keep feeding, and then in some ways also be the result of creating spiders across the Spider-Verse so he can then feed on them later. I mean, it all checks out here if you really just think about it, and would also be a good way to literally undo all the damage that they've done to Miguel 2099 by pointing, hey, that's not the real one, that's Morlun posing as him, and Morlun is just a variant of 2099. But going further than this, there's a little film coming out next year that's going to have Morlun trying to feed on spider people and totems, this being Madam Web. And Madam Web is rumored to appear at the end of Beyond the Spider-Verse. So the connective tissue here to me honestly all points to the fact that Miguel O'Hara, as we saw, is not in fact the Miguel we think he is. He is gonna be revealed to be Morlun, the true enemy of the entire Spider-Verse. Thus putting 2099 in a position where we can get the real one. Miles Morales can become the one exception to all the rules, reform the entire Spider-Verse to take on Morlun, and then, when it's all said and done, here comes Madam Web to show us it's not all said and done. It's gonna get even crazier. So there it is, guys. That is my theory on why I believe that Morlun is truly the villain of Spider-Verse.